students would be ordering things from. It's this, online sites where you can order. Very nice. So she's working with artisans and people like that. They are looking to actually get artisans and even others. I mean, and a lot of orientation towards emphasis on women entrepreneurs to set up their own stores in this online space and to help optimize their sales and marketing, etc. So she's doing that, and I think quite enjoying it.
Good. So what did she study as a discipline?
Economics and finance. And after that, it's like MBA for everyone. But I think the corporate world is kind of not something that attracts a lot of people anymore. So she is a little looking to see what she would be passionate about. After starting with that, there's nothing really that she's passionate about. I think most students at this age, I think many of I really identify with where they are at the end of 3 years. Because through school and then college, it's kind of you're on a conveyor belt. And for some of us, we get sorted by the third year and we kind of know that we want to go on to something else. For many of us, we need a year or two to figure it out, right? So what Jessica was saying to me and what many of our students say by the end of 3 years, many go on to do a master's only because they don't know what else to do, which is the worst thing actually to do. So I don't know how much career counseling or just all of that one has in a structured manner. We do it in our colleges. Do you all have a JMC, Maya?
We don't have a full-time career counselor. No.
Nor do we. So we do it at our own level, with our students, all of us. And placement cell works towards placements. But I think that is a gap that could be filled, maybe. Some of the other universities, I think, are doing a better job at that.
I think a lot of department-wise events happen. At the department level, different departments are engaging with these kind of discussions. So they do have career counseling days or career days, etc. during one session. So where things related to the particular discipline that you're studying. So we call our own students, alumnus, to just come and speak to the students about what they're doing. So how from each discipline, people just diversify into so many different fields. So we do keep calling them back to come and speak to their super juniors and give them some idea about what's really happening and what are the various things that they can do. Because sometimes students don't really know that, a discipline like history or English can actually open up so many avenues. It's not always traditionally an MA, an MPhil, a PhD or something else, a teaching.
Absolutely. I really feel that college is a lot about just, it's a lot about peer. It's about the discipline, but it's not as much about the discipline as finding oneself and through the discipline and also through what else is going on in college, right? So peer becomes very important and engaging seriously, getting a work ethic. I think that's what one acquires in college, that there's a lot of work to be done and you can do it in whatever discipline you're doing it in.
That's
so
true.
Getting a work ethic, some research skills, some, presentation skills that often one doesn't have in school.
I remember there was this history honors students. Maya, you might remember her, Mehak Dhawan. She's a food blogger and she has great following on Instagram. That is actually a profession that she's pursuing. She's not doing anything else from what I know. She's full-time, pursuing her passion for food and blogging. And she was in the history department. I remember having taught her way back in 2016, I think, when I joined.
So I taught at JMC, Kashish, it's my first teaching job. I graduated from JMC in 1990 and I came back to teach in 92. And I was teaching with all the teachers who had taught me and in the same staff room. And it was actually a wonderful place to even initiate into teaching. And I was there for 3 years and it was a great experience. I don't know how many of your students are serious about, are interested at all in teaching? What do you all think of academics and teaching as a profession at all?
Ma'am,
Zubeda.
Yeah, Zubeda?
Yes, ma'am, I'm interested in also love to be professor at JMC. That I would love.
Zubeda, your voice is cracking. I think the internet is slightly patchy.
Ma'am, I said actually my passion is academia. I'd love to be a professor in JMC like Radhika, ma'am. Yeah.
We can start. Like we are ready to go. Okay. Tara, you can take over.
Yes. Hi. A very good evening to everyone who's joined us here today. On the behalf of the Women's Studies Center, Jesus and Mary College, I, Sarah, will be your anchor for the much anticipated release of our annual magazine, Jigyasa, The Quest. The Women's Studies Center aims to promote feminist ideas, remove gendered binaries, and lead societal change through education, awareness, as well as training. We consistently strive towards achieving this goal through various methods. One method being our magazine, Jigyasa, The Quest. The magazine provides students with a vibrant and innovative forum to voice their concerns and ideas about systematic inequalities in regards with gender, class, caste, and their various manifestations in everyday life. This year, the magazine is centered around the theme of shattering boundaries and reclaiming spaces. To start with, I would like to invite our convener, Dr. Maya John, for the opening address.
Thank you, Sarah, for the welcome address. I hope I'm audible and my voice is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
And we've started live streaming. Okay, great. Okay. First of all, let me personally welcome everyone who has joined us, both on the Google Meet platform and whoever is tuned in through the YouTube channel of Women's Studies Center, JMC. A warm welcome, particularly to my colleague and our special guest today, Dr. Radhika Chadha, who teaches history at Miranda House College at Delhi University, and who has a keen interest in the histories of gender. And she is also, an alumnus of Jesus and Mary College. She shared with us earlier, about her 3 years, a little bit about that whole experience in JMC. So very happy that she's here with us and took out time to even go through the magazine's e-copy beforehand. And it's just here to give us, a boost and encourage our endeavors, especially those of the students. Now, today evening, the Women's Studies Center, with a lot of excitement, and my colleague Kashish and the editorial team members are going to agree with me on this. I mean, it's been a nail-biting finish in many ways, because till the last moment, almost till 3:45, we were trying to figure out the PDF and just make sure there are no embarrassing typos anywhere. So a lot of energy, a lot of hard work, a lot of excitement is very much present and part of this release, official release of the annual magazine Jigyasa 21-22, which in many ways provides a snapshot, just a snapshot, because there was a lot that we were able to achieve in this last 1 year. So this is just a snapshot of all the work and the numerous initiatives that we have pursued as a University Grants Commission, UGC recognized Women's Studies Center. The magazine is also, a way in which, we try to capture, and I do think it's able to do that, the essence of the keenness with which our WSC members, be it, our young first years who just joined about 4-5 months back, and who are extremely exhausted because of the way in which, they have had to come to college every day, throughout the sweltering months of May, June. So, the keenness with which our first year, second year, or third year members, have engaged with debates, have pushed themselves, questioned things, and have, related to, try to understand burning issues. Of course, some people have always put in more effort. Things are closer to their heart. They grasp things faster. But I think generally across the board, most of our members have a sense of, concern about what's happening around them, which is why they're even here in the Women's Studies Center in the first place. Now, Jigyasa as a magazine has always embodied a particular and a very strong mission and zeal of the Women's Studies Center, which is to generate grounded knowledge of gender issues. So it is an endeavor, the center itself, and therefore whatever it produces, such as, the magazine Jigyasa, it all encapsulates an endeavor on coming to know about how to change the realities of inequalities around us. So of course, we all of us, we know many people around us who know about gender issues. But not everyone channelizes that knowing, into a knowledge, into an understanding of, and into a commitment to change how gender dynamics play themselves out. So the center actually, in that way, plays a crucial and relevant role on whatever it can do with its limited resources or whatever limited time it has. It tries to, shape young minds and channelize energy, creativity, and concerns of this very important constituency of college-going students in significant, meaningful ways. To understand this better, please allow me to share a small story, so you can better place, WSC, and you can place its work, such as this magazine's production, in a context. There was this man who once got onto a train, and he was quite a busybody, and a little aggressively pushing people around, and making his way, and sat down on a berth, in fact almost pushed somebody else off the berth, and staked a claim and said, this is my berth. And a passenger next to him in the same compartment kind of mustered some courage and asked this man, bhai sahab, jana kahan hai aapko? Where do you have to go? And this man kind of in an irritated way says, tumhe kya? What is it to you? Now the train chugs out of the station, 1 or 2 stations go by. This man takes off his shoes and socks, relaxes a bit, and having relaxed, the other passenger sees that acha mauka hai to strike a conversation. Let me try again. So again, will you have a cup of chai? The chai wala aa raha tha, so this other sort of grumpy man, assertive man, says, yeah, हाँ, please, मैं भी पीऊंगा. And the chai, over a cup of chai each, the other passenger asked this man, मैं फिर से पूछना चाह रहा था आपसे, आप जा कहाँ रहे हैं? Where are you going? Which station? And this man swallows his tea and says, I want to go to Mumbai. I'm going to Mumbai. So the other passenger looks guffawed and says, आप Mumbai नहीं पहुँचेंगे. You will not reach Mumbai. And this man looks alarmed and says, what the hell? क्यों ऐसा क्यों बोल रहे हो? तुम कौन होते हो? मैं जाऊंगा मुंबई. And this passenger says, आपको मुंबई जाना है, दिक्कत है ये ट्रेन मुंबई नहीं जाती है. So I think if you just pay attention to what I'm trying to get at through the story, basically what I'm trying to say is, you may have something in your mind, you may be somebody who feels strongly about certain issues, be it gender issues, larger inequalities. You want to do something, but do you have the right medium? Do you have the right platform to achieve, refine, systematize what you're feeling, what you're thinking, give it more concrete shape? And that's where something like, a politically informed Radical Women's Studies Center comes in. It provides you precisely that kind of medium to refine your understanding of inequalities around you, understand feminism better, including feminism's fault lines or blind spots, and of course, get a better sense of the women's movement around you. So yes, WSC, that way, in JMC, is a very serious academic and co-curricular body which continuously strives to create a generation of young women. Let me not be specific. Why just women? Many people do not identify themselves as women. So a generation of young people who can partake in the movement, in the social movement, with the women's movement, anti-caste movement, various other workers' movements, etc. And wherever basically they go, the center tries to inculcate in them an immense sense of responsibility and a critical social conscience. So we hope that you see this kind of effort, as I said, this mission or zeal reflected in Jigyasa and the way Jigyasa tries to capture our efforts throughout the last 1 year. Now, given our mission, given our zeal as a center that strives to go beyond, to take students beyond textbookish information about gender, about feminism, about the functioning of larger society, the economy, and so on. We actively, therefore, promote student research through our very active research cell. And in the past, we've had some fantastic, research initiatives. We had students study, for example, rape crisis centers in Delhi. They visited 3 different rape crisis centers to see how they function on the ground. What are some of the problems that the staff deployed at rape crisis centers face? And of course, also the sense of how rape crisis centers are very inadequate in terms of the infrastructure, the interface, etc. We had another, very interesting and meaningful research project, which was, carried out last year, 2020-2021, which was on the experiences of, women across the board with lockdowns, pandemic-induced lockdowns. And, one of the chapters in that research project report, which was on the impacts of online learning, was even published in a reputed peer-reviewed journal, by ICT. And that article is very close to our hearts because one of the student writers, authors, passed away actually during the second phase of COVID. But it was great to see that the labor, her hard work, took this form, was recognized. So we really felt proud to be able to send the publication to her parents. She was unwell. While she was unwell, she was still working on that part of the research cell on the lockdowns. Another very interesting research project that we had was with respect to women entrepreneurs in Chandni Chowk area. We had another very important research project last year on cyberbullying and women students of the age group 18 to 25. How did they deal with it? This year again, socially meaningful research projects are being carried out. One on sanitation workers, particularly focusing on women sanitation workers, trying to trace how this is a hereditary occupation in many senses, looking at how the job, the nature of the work process has changed, how has unionization affected the condition of sanitation workers in certain workplaces. We also have another research project that's been done this year, which is on caste and dating apps. So how has dating behavior been, unfolding or emerging on dating apps, and do caste, expectations or stereotypes get reflected in certain kind of dating behavior and use of dating apps. So we can see from this kind of summary, a quick summary that I'm giving of the kind of research work that's been done, research projects, that, we are trying to push our students, out into trying to, pursue extensive interactions, do solid on the ground work, and to hone their research skills for socially meaningful research. Now, there are also other things that the center does. Just quickly, we try to organize as regularly as possible what are known as short-term certificate courses. Here again, we try to provide, on various topics, various important issues. We try to bring scholars, activists on board to take these, short-term courses, and we try to keep as broad, spectrum of topics as possible. We try to cover as much ground. Also, workshops is another format in which the WSC, has been organizing things for the students and exposing them to debates, film screenings, study circles, informal discussions, and all of these work towards, again, encouraging students to develop a critical perspective. And when I say this, I mean basically we're trying to get students to engage more with and understand this very important dimension that there is no one kind of woman. There are differences within women. There is nothing like a homogeneous category woman. Okay? So, the tensions within, the elements of complicity of how one section of women can be complicit in the exploitation, oppression of other women. These kind of dynamics and the debates in literature on this are very often part of the kind of certificate courses, workshops that we've had. So being able to recognize the differences within the experiences and positions of women is something that I think enriches the WSC's effort at providing a certain kind of understanding or knowledge to the students. So differences within women along various axes. Of course, I just like to conclude here by giving warm thanks to all my colleagues. There's 6 of them in the Women's Studies Center with me who have been very, very supportive. They have brought ideas, for us to follow up and implement. They have done a lot of legwork for us, and of course, very often they are also guiding and mentoring students of the WSC personally when I'm not able to do so. I thank our very, very hardworking, very enthusiastic, outgoing office bearers, Jessica and Sanya. Jessica, I do hope तुम लायर बनोगी बहुत जल्दी और खूब झूठ बोलोगी सबके सामने, जजेस के सामने. Sanya, I do sometimes hope to sit down with you and have an intensive session on queer politics. That is a discussion we never had, so I do hope we do sit down and do that. To the new office bearers who took charge in the month of April, end April, maybe, yes. They have been very, very supportive as well. There have been these moments when I've been absolutely quiet for like 2 weeks and they're like, what's happened? Why haven't we got a feedback on something we asked? So thank you for all of that, being patient, bringing your own ideas and pushing the team, core team and other people to deliver on decisions that we have taken. To the general members of WSC, whoever is watching, a big thanks to you. You make many of our events very successful and high on energy. I thank all of you, particularly for participating in Jagrati, our annual fest in March, and especially a shout out for those of you who perhaps for the first time came for a protest march at Jantar Mantar on International Women's Day and brought so much energy to that public meeting at Jantar Mantar. बाद में बाकी महिला संगठन के लोग कहते ये कहाँ से बच्चे आए थे, ये हर सेकंड पे नारे लगा रहे थे, बहुत जोश में गा रहे थे और hooting कर रहे थे हर speech के बाद. So that's the energy we hope we can reproduce, and more young people joining the movement and understanding debates, enriching debates. That's the way to go, and that's what I hope all WSC members end up doing in their lives. Thank you so much once again, everyone, for seeing Jigyasa through, and special thanks to Kashish, who bore with me and all the back and forth and helped us put together this fantastic volume. Over to you, Kashish.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. And thank you so much, Dr. Chadha, for joining us today. I just want to begin by congratulating the entire WSC team. Of course, the convener, Dr. Maya John, and each and every staff advisor, without whose year-round hard work, I don't think Jigyasa 22 would have been possible. Because if you look at this magazine, if you look at Jigyasa, its value actually lies in the fact that behind each of its entry, is the ethos that WSC has been trying to create, trying to achieve through over the years of work that WSC has been doing in JMC, and the kind of outreach work as well that WSC is carrying out. The content in the magazine is exactly what I just mentioned. It's the combination of the knowledge the students have gained because of all the events that we have organized in this last one session, and how they have gotten inspired from those kind of discussions, those debates, and they've applied those discussions, debates to the specific topics of interest that they themselves have. So when you look at the content, you'll see the reflection on the events that we've had, and then how the students have taken these discussions forward to what interests them, to what they're passionate about, and how they feel about these particular issues. And I'm sure that when you will go through this magazine, you'll be able to get an insight into the kind of commitment that WSC has towards gender issues and how the youth of today especially is, trying to engage with them. I feel that at Jigyasa is like this very important document to see how the students of the current time, the university students, are engaging with these issues and are then reflecting on it through various kinds of pieces that they've submitted, creative, non-fiction, research articles, etc. And I just want to keep this brief, and I want to acknowledge all the dedication and hard work that the editorial team and the design team have put in. They've just put in their heart and soul into creating Jigyasa 2022. And I'm really hoping that you find this magazine as interesting as was the production process and the entire time that we spent together virtually, otherwise over calls, etc., coordinating and bringing it together. So I'm really hoping that you'll enjoy it as much as we enjoyed putting it together. So thank you. Sarah.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up, we have a very special guest with us today, Dr. Radhika Chadha. Dr. Chadha is an alumnus from the History Department of Jesus and Mary College and a scholar of gender history. Currently, she is an associate professor in the Department of History, Miranda House. She received her PhD in history from Jawaharlal Nehru University, and her academic interests include medieval Islamic empires, the history of early modern India, the visual cultural of medieval and early modern South Asia, and gender. And so I would like to please invite her to release Jigyasa and grace her with her thoughts.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this very exciting and very vibrant session. I'm so happy to be able to release this magazine to y'all, for y'all, because it's a very beautiful document first and foremost, right? So I'll just present my screen and first maybe share the magazine. Right? So is that fine? Can you all see it?
Yes, we can.
Right. So my first thoughts were, as soon as I got it, was that it is such a marvelously put together document. Just visually, it's so appealing that you want to pick it up and read it. Right? From the cover to the artwork to the, I mean, there's so much to take in. I'm just doing what I did myself when I got it for y'all. Right? It's very rich. So if I'd spent a long time just looking at the table of contents and just to get a sense of all that this magazine covers. And I think what it really captures is the richness of the year that's gone by and the kinds of things that you all have done. Okay, so while I will return to that, full compliments to your graphics team, your design team, just the formatting, the presentation. It is extremely attractive, right? And like this marvelous version we just received, that as Maya said, that this makes it actually very real and not a virtual experience. I'm still one of those who enjoys a book much more than e content, right? But so I'm sure, I mean, y'all will all be flipping through it at some point and reading it. I just want to give my thoughts, I mean, share some of my thoughts as I went through it and read some articles in a little more detail and than others. Well, actually, because they just randomly captured my attention, right? There was no method to that. So first of all, congratulations for the theme itself, right? It's a very attractive and a very meaningful theme. In gender studies, right, or in any kind of gendered narratives, which is that of reclaiming spaces and shattering boundaries. And I think in many different ways, the magazine and y'all actually, what the magazine captures is really what y'all have done through this very difficult year to navigate, right, with all its changes that came from online to suddenly offline thrust upon us. So again, kudos to you all for rising to create this kind of a production at the end of that. But what I wanted to say was that what I found most striking is first and foremost the seriousness of the Women's Studies Center at JMC and the range of things that it attempts to do, that you all have certainly shown that you do in the course of this 1 year captured in the magazine. So when I went through the contents, it really interested me that there is a really good engagement with theory. So you'd have had, I mean, a certificate course is, it's an attractive way of certifying what one should actually be first and foremost engaging with before entering into any kind of women's studies, which is theory itself. Right now, I don't know how we teach now a paper in the history syllabus in the University of Delhi on gendered narratives, right? Gendered histories of India, right? A gendered reading of the histories of India that all of us end up reading and become very familiar with through school and then college, where we do all these different papers in Indian history. But the gendered narrative, what more is there to say about anything? I mean, this is how things are, is how most of us begin looking at when we're first introduced to gender. So I do think that it's extraordinary that this Women's Studies Center is so serious as to first offer a deep and serious engagement with the theory, feminist theory, right? Which I saw in workshops that have been offered possibly by Maya this last year, but also through engagement with professionals, practitioners, scholars, activists, through your webinar series, right? Very good name, so that we know that any kind of interaction, even without reading through what actually went on in those discussions, one knows that an interaction with scholars of this caliber, serious scholars of this caliber, would have brought a lot to the table, right? And students would have taken a lot away with them. So I thought it was again something eye-opening that you have so closely engaged with these scholars to have documented what that session was about, so that it's not just doesn't just remain in the memories of those who attended those sessions, but then gets put down for you to revisit and perhaps relook at and use in the future. I think that's what what struck me a lot about the magazine, and as I keep returning to the documentation of what has been done through the year, that there are these building blocks through which I see that students who've engaged closely in this center and its activities would have grown in the course of the year. Not only in women's studies or in this co-curricular activity, as it is called, but I think in their own disciplines. So many of you are coming from history and sociology and economics, all of which have papers that are quite sensitive to gendered readings, right? So I think it would have also helped in your academics, but more than that, I think the most important thing is just open one's eyes to the world one lives in, and the way by which we then start seeing everything around us as gendered. Right? I think that's anyone who's engaged in your center, in this center through the year, would certainly have benefited, I think, enormously. And these are takeaways that then stay with us in life. And they become perspectives through which, they become filters and lenses through which we then start seeing. And nothing is quite the same again, right? It changes as the world looks different from then onwards. Once we are empowered to see it through this different lens. I also, since history is closest to my heart, that's the discipline through which I engage with society, with the world around me. I was so happy to see that there is a deep engagement in history, right? In the student researched articles that are very serious, evidently serious, right? From the writing, from the footnotes, from the bibliographies. I was very, very happy. I wanted to draw attention to just this, that there's a lot of the magazine, and I think a lot of what young people are mostly interested in is the world around us today, right? Like, as my daughter often says, that so what's gone is gone, and so it's not relevant anymore. But of course, the students of history know that that's not true. But I think the ideas that we're looking for, that how to build, as Maya was mentioning, a better world, right? And how to struggle against these inequalities. Often history gives us some insights into other ways of doing things, other ways of organizing things that might have existed in the past and have been lost to our epistemological systems today. We don't know anymore, right? The past was not always, it was different, and often it was not worse. We are not more modern today, modern with all its value added, value loaded terminology. We are more modern, but we may not be better. Modernity may not be enlightenment and progress for women very often. And something I thought I'd talk about maybe for a couple of moments only is, again, a theme that I find very fascinating and very interesting, and also because there's much less that we know of it, at least in India, that what about women in Islam? And what about women in Islamic empires in Indian history? And we begin and we presume that they were veiled and disempowered and were then needed to be liberated over a period of time. But history and some of the historical narratives show us, at least are pointing in directions that reveal that there may have been far more empowering ways in which women lived their lives in what we call medieval, right? Which is always again value added as against modern times. So sometimes I feel that an engagement with history is just not only interesting in itself; it also shows us that there are possibly different ways of organizing our world today that we may possibly draw upon from past experiences. Uh, Before I go on, I thought I would maybe just scroll a little bit more into the magazine. Um, Many of the student articles I thought were very well, for someone who is just interested in picking up this magazine. Very interesting to see that they engage with the theme of at 75 or at 100, the university at 100 years, the republic at 75 years. So gendered narratives of women's experiences in the University of Delhi is something that I think across the university community, most college students today or even a few years ago would be interested in reading articles of that kind. In India at large, the article on Kashmir, right? Very, very well put together and I think very well selected. The theme, which would be close, I'm sure, to the heart of a student who wrote it. But I think, again, interesting and important for us to engage with. Women in Indian politics. Right? Very important. We have on today's date, as we speak, we have raging controversies regarding a woman politician and her understanding and her daring to articulate how Kali is worshipped in this country, right? And the trolling, etc., against her as a articulate and fearless woman politician in Indian politics, right? So that I thought that some of those articles were very well. The topics were very well chosen, and for anyone just interested in the way anyone would pick up a magazine and read it, they would interest anyone of that kind. Again and again, what really attracted my attention was the artwork. I thought it's very powerful, right, and very well selected. So full marks to whoever has been responsible for that. It would take a long time, I think, to get to the section that I'm looking for, which is really the self-expression, the prose, the poetry, right? Your own, the self-expression of students, the photographs, right? That the spaces through which you are engaging with the theme of shattering boundaries and reclaiming spaces. So I won't take more time. I won't scroll till the end. I'm sure you will all do that. But just to get you a sense of, like, every page is so attractive. And every article is, you want to pause. I spent about a couple of hours looking through your magazine. And I know I'll go back and read many more of the articles that I haven't been able to glance at so far. Would that be okay, Maya?
Perfect. I was just writing in the chat box for your very generous feedback and a lot of encouragement that you've given us. It means a lot.
No, you all are doing a great job, and I was very impressed. And full marks to all of you. And I'll be watching keenly what you all are doing. And
Thanks.
please do share the next edition of Jigyasa. Thanks.
Certainly. Thank you. Students, take charge.
Thank you, ma'am. Now we'll be hearing from Jessica, WSC President 2021 to 22, without whom the magazine would have not been possible.
Thank you, Sarah. I hope I'm audible. Okay, so the magazine in itself, we promised Maya ma'am that it won't be a bulky magazine. We try to, shortcut it, but again, we kind of failed on that aspect. It still is a bulky magazine, but I'm so proud of my entire editorial team and, of course, my design team who worked literally throughout the year, starting from the conception of idea on what the theme of the magazine should be, to designing and to deciding on what are going to be the different segments to it, uh, the kind of hard work the entire editorial team and the design team had done, specifically in the last 2 months when there was like so much of back and forth, there were so many things going on, but they still managed to pull off the entire magazine so brilliantly. And one more thing that I want to add, that this magazine would not have been possible without obviously the guidance of Maya ma'am and Kashish ma'am, but also because Sanya and Shrishti were there for for the editorial team as the head, and so Tejasvi. So we specifically, I never had to worry about what is going with the editorial team, what is going with the magazine, because Sanya was there. So I knew that there was someone, who could handle the entire magazine so well. So I never had to worry about that. And now that magazine is finally here, I just feel that it was the legwork, everything that both of these two two-star kids, I would say, of WSC core team did, Sanya and Shushi, and Tejasvi also, who tried to engage with the Hindi honors students also to make magazine bilingual as far as possible, and try to create an inclusive space through magazine also. So yes, and obviously Sharanya and Brinda, without whom the designing would not have been possible, and all the other design team members who worked through the designs and had to listen to a lot of time to Sanya that this is not the way the thing should be. This is how it should look like, and all of those uh, pick, small things that Sanya took care of when Shushti wasn't there, and what Shushti took care of. So it's been a great magazine that has come out, and I feel so proud of each one of editorial and design team, and all the best to the new office bearers. Now that this is probably the last event that I would attend, I would surely miss walking for WSC, but I really hope that the new office bearer get to run around the college more than Sana and I did throughout the year, and they get to speak to Francis sir and everyone else who are responsible for the events that we do. So yes, thank you so much, Maya ma'am and Kashish ma'am, for always being there and guiding the editorial and the design team.
Thank you, Jessica. Now we'll be having Sanya and Shishti, the editors of the magazine, will be coming and saying a few words.
Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible. So, thank you everyone for joining us today for the release of the annual magazine. I am extremely happy to be here today. So, Shushti couldn't be here, unfortunately. She had a class. So, I'll be covering the information about the theme and the process by which we came up with it, and just briefly explain it. So every year, the editorial team gets together, and we ideate on a new theme for the magazine. And I have been lucky enough personally for because I got to be the part of this whole process for 2 years. Now this session has been extremely special and important because I got to team up with my best friend to become the editor of this magazine, and she's also a very talented writer. So that was a lot of support. And reclaiming spaces and shattering boundaries is the theme for this year's Jigyasa. And, Srushti was the one who actually ideated and came up with the sub themes also. So it couldn't, a lot of credit of that for that goes to her. Now, space as a concept, when we came up with it, covers a wide range of things and places. Now, it can mean anything from an immediate physical space to a psychological space, socio-political, and even an academic space. The aspect that these spaces are centered around gender and affected by access or the lack of it drives the content of this magazine. Now, similarly with boundaries, amongst other things, it is the historical undertone of the idea of boundaries that remains important to the magazine that we've come up with this year. Now, spaces of different kinds have often been extremely restricting for women and even other gender minorities. The discrimination was often penetrated through varied boundaries that we mention in a lot of our entries. The traces of this historical bias often reflect in certain norms and expectations that we do witness in modern forms. Women's movement have time and again challenged these boundaries and fiercely attempted to expand these spaces to make them more inclusive and safer, bringing everything down to the basic ideals of solidarity and inclusivity that we practice at the Women's Studies Center. And finally, to add to all of that, the seed that actually fueled this theme was the shape shifting that was happening in the last semester, when after 1.5 years or 1 year of attending every bit of college online, we were shifting to an offline mode. Hence, this segment that is based on the campus spaces and the idea of solidarity within college has many responses from our fellow JMC students, and it has to be my favorite part of the magazine. I urge every member here to go through that and check that segment particularly out. It was a thrilling task to read all the entries and realize the different and diverse ways in which different authors had interpreted the theme, even though we had tried to narrow it down to a lot of sub themes to make it easier for people to interpret. Because, again, spaces can be a very broad spectrum to navigate through. But it was really interesting to see everyone's interpretation of the theme. And the magazine is a successful collection mostly of political as well as personal experiences of the writers. Jigyasa 2022 is actually a very sincere attempt, and where we try to find an intersection between this creative freedom and political sensitivity, keeping in mind the nuanced understanding of gender and the women's movement. I would also like to again congratulate the editorial team for all the hard work, not just for the magazine, but also keeping in touch with the other content that we were creating for the social media and all, etc. That everything was taking place simultaneously, and it couldn't have been easy. So this semester, anyway, wasn't very easy for all of us, and I'm really grateful for everyone's contribution. I would also like to congratulate the other contributors who are WSC members. I hope this publication inspires you to keep writing. And the design team, of course, Brinda was constantly in touch with me about every little thing that had to be corrected. And I'm really, really happy that they were so patient when I was constantly giving back changes, because my mom was giving me so many changes. So it was really a very interesting journey. And lastly, I would also like to thank our publishers, Prithvi, from Lal Tara Publishers, for finalizing our designs and also being very patient with us when we kept going back with changes and some or the other tweaks in the design. And lastly, a huge thanks again to our teachers, Dr. Maya John and Ms. Kashish Dua, for being so patient and always being there when we kept needing an extended deadline for everything. Finally, Jessica, you were constantly there, asking about all the work and how it was going. That was really sweet. And this is a product of everyone's hard work, and we're extremely elated to share this with all of our members and rest of the student body at JMC. Thank you very much.
Well said.
We'll be having Jahanvi and Aditi from the editorial team joining us to help us navigate through the various sections of the magazine.
We've also placed in the chat box the flip cover PDFs so people can, start going through while the editorial booth speaks.
Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, Aditi.
I welcome everybody to the release of Jigyasa 2021-2022. And now we're going to be taking a deeper look at the structure of the magazine and how exactly it navigates the theme, shattering boundaries and reclaiming spaces. As all of you have already seen, this is the cover of the magazine. And this year's magazine is divided into 7 broad sections, which are as follows. Section 1, debating issues of access, inequality, and change, highlights from WSC events. Section 2, feminist verses. Section 3, this prose is political. Section 4, reviews. Section 5, Saath, Sahyog, Anubhav, solidarities in campus spaces, reflections from the students of JMC. Section 6, the year that was, and Section 7, pictures that speak volumes. The first section is called Debating Issues of Access, Inequality, and Change, highlights from WSC events, and it highlights the academic and empirical engagement of the Women's Studies Center with gendered inequalities in various forms. It consists of interviews, reports of WSC events, and prize-winning research papers presented as part of Jagriti, which is the annual festival of WSC. As you can see, these are the this is a list of contents of section 1, and includes various interviews like the one with Dr. Meera Velayudhan, or the WSC events conducted, reports of WSC event conducted, like mainstream feminist approaches and theories, and the one on NEP 2020 and its gendered impact. And it also has some very interesting prize-winning papers which were part of Jagrati 2022. And this is the section 2, which is called Feminist Verses, and it showcases the poetic endeavors of the contributors. These compositions revolve around the themes of gender and identity, and they have been composed in both Hindi and English. And the third section is called This Prose is Political. The compositions in this section explore the theme shattering boundaries and reclaiming spaces through multiple lenses like art, science, politics, media, history, and much more. Gender, class, caste, sexuality, and their various manifestations in everyday life are the overarching themes in all the pieces. And there are some very interesting articles, like the one called What Kashmiriyat Entailed for Women, Remembering the Naya Kashmir Document, or The Horrors of the Place Called Home, a vision into child sexual abuse, or something, again, very interesting and different, called Women and K-Traumas.
The fourth section includes reviews of two very popular media pieces, The Great Indian Kitchen and Frankenstein, and they present pieces that analyze the socio-political dimensions of these artworks, such as gender and class, which play an important role in influencing attitudes and shaping minds. The fifth section is titled Saath Sahyog Anubhav, Solidarities in Campus Spaces, Reflections from the Students of JMC. It delves into the thoughts and reflections of students regarding their interpersonal connections, the feeling of being part of a community, and other experiences in the online mode as compared to the physical mode of college. Some prompts that were given to students included what their idea, how their situation had changed in the physical mode, as well as what physical spaces in college invoked a sense of solidarity in them. The next section is titled The Year That Was. It showcases the glimpses of the academic session 2021 and 2022. It includes snapshots from our annual Fest Jagrati, certificate courses, film screenings, and other events. There are a few glimpses and snapshots of the same. And finally, we have the seventh section, Pictures That Speak Volumes. It showcases the winning entries of the photography competition organized during Jagrati 2022. It also features a very interesting comic strip on rising communal tensions in the country. And finally, here we have the wonderful team Jigyasa that worked on this magazine, including our editorial desk and the design team.
We'll be opening the floor now for the editorial and design team members to share their thoughts and experiences while working on the magazine.
Okay, so I was a part of the editorial team that worked on Jigyasa, and the experience that I had can be summarized aptly in like 2 words precisely, which is eventful and thought-provoking. So I remember like starting the work of Jigyasa with the first meeting that we had to ideate upon a theme. And I remember like we had 2 distinct goals, which was to come up with a theme that is specific, but at the same time, it should be broad enough to incorporate everyone's ideas and everyone's suggestions. So Sanya and Shrishti did a great job to summarize all of our thoughts and all of our ideas into this one theme, shattering boundaries and reclaiming spaces. It was a great journey to ideate upon the theme, then work on the articles that I wanted to work on. I wrote this article on feminist theater. It was an amazing experience to research upon it, then ideate upon certain sections that we have in the magazine, like the college segment. That section is especially close to my heart. It was like an amazing experience to talk to people, to know about their experiences and the shift from online to offline. And definitely it was a very experience. It was the experience that like made me learn a lot. And lastly, I would like to thank Sanya and Srishti for persisting through all our delays and everything. And I would also like to thank Maya ma'am and Kashish ma'am for their suggestions and guidance. Kashvi, you're here from the editorial team. Would you like to say something?
Hi everyone. So I'll just keep it very brief. I thought the theme of shattering boundaries and reclaiming spaces has especially been very important to talk about in the past few years, especially looking at the state of affairs when it comes to women and how countries and governments actually manifest their oppression. So writing about how women have actually reclaimed their spaces has been a very enriching experience for me. Um, Talking about my personal experience, I was asked to choose topics for some of the pieces in this magazine, and I only just chose what I really wanted to write about and explore. And initially, I had no idea what I would actually write. But when I actually started writing these pieces, I poured out all my feelings, thoughts, anger in these article pieces, and I actually realized that this is what feminism is. It's when women are given a space safe enough to talk about everything they feel without any judgment. That's it for me. Thank you.
Anyone else from the editorial team would like to share something?
I can say some of the contributors to the magazine are also here. Would you like to say something?
Okay, I don't think we should pressurize anyone. Maybe they're all just mulling over the document right now, right? If anybody has anything else to share from the audience, please feel free to. Otherwise, hopefully by mid week, that's coming week, you should all have a personal copy of Jigyasa in your inbox. So we do plan to get it out and email to all of you. And editorial team, if there's any last minute anything that you note in the document before that mail is sent out and before it goes up on the website of college, do let us know. Kashish, any last words or?
No, I guess that's it. I just hope all the members who are present here will actually take a look at the magazine and get inspired to maybe make some submissions for the next edition. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping that this magazine would do. That it will just inspire you, and maybe you can just send in the suggestions, speak to the current office bearers, see what are they thinking about. There's also a WSC blog, so if the next edition of Jigyasa looks a little far away, there's always the blog that you can first try your hands at and see what kind of feedback and responses you get from your peers. So it's very important. I mean, I think this platform is really important because when you think through the perspective of a college student, you do need platforms where you can, make submissions, see what your peers are saying about it, see how your professors are reviewing it, or, when experts like Dr. Chadha come in and say something or give a comment or a feedback about these articles. I feel that this kind of feedback mechanism that these platforms generate, especially magazines like these generate, are very important. Sometimes we are just so caught in our own zones, own thought processes, etc., that we don't get a chance to open up and speak to other people about the kind of issues that we've been thinking of or are close to our hearts. So I really feel that this magazine is important. I'm hoping that you will, maybe discuss these articles with your friends, circulate the copies, start talking about the things that have you have been passionate about and you've written about it, or your friends have written something in the magazine, it will just spark a conversation. And that's what WSC has been trying to do all throughout, right? Just create conversations around these issues, topics, etc. And I'm really hoping the magazine, even as a written piece, will work as a catalyst for these discussions that hopefully will happen. Thank you.
I would like to express my sincere gratitude to everyone who has helped with the launch of the magazine. And I'm confident that for everyone who reads it and that they will adapt and grow in the same way as the magazine's contributors have. Many thanks to everyone who attended today. Here's to learning as well as unlearning. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our JMC colleagues, other teachers who joined, and for your generous feedback.